Hello, everyone. Welcome to March's MHC x SOMCAN Health Education webinar. If you haven't noticed yet, we started a little bit later this month, but hope you were able to squeeze an extra hour of sleep or maybe a longer breakfast today. As for today's agenda, we have Carissa first with our COVID-19 update. As you know, there are a lot of new and recent changes regarding COVID vaccines and their distribution. Following that, we will have public health chairs presenting on diabetes and how to manage it. Our behavioral health chairs will then present on intergenerational and intercultural connections. Our presentations today are also available in Filipino and Tagalog, so you can just head to our videos page, or it might be on our main page as well. But there you can find those videos. So thank you to our Tagalog team for making this health education possible. And currently we have an ongoing seniors focus group in Filipino via Zoom going on right now. So if you'd like to join, please send the MHC page a message and we will get you a link as soon as possible. Now for some quick tech tutorials, if you want to enter a comment from your laptop or desktop, just type your question and hit enter and return on your keyboard. If you want to enter from your smartphone, just write your question in the comment space and tap that triangular blue button to send your question. We're also using QR codes for these presentations. So go ahead and scan a QR code if you want to fill out a survey. And please also share this stream. So for our community viewers raffle, we're doing a raffle again for this month. So one like and share is a raffle entry. And again, a survey completion is another raffle entry. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentations. I'll hand it off to Carissa, my co-public health director.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Carissa and I am one of the public health directors working with Julianne at Mabuhay Health Center. Today I will be giving another update on the COVID-19 pandemic. So today I'll be focusing on the COVID-19 vaccine, specifically the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and also updating on the COVID-19 vaccine distribution. So in terms of what vaccines are currently approved, the vaccines that are authorized for emergency use are the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, which was just recently authorized. Just as a refresher for those who watched the January COVID-19 update, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are both mRNA vaccines. They require 2 shots. The Pfizer is 21 days apart and the Moderna is 28 days apart. And they are both over 94% effective at preventing COVID-19. And this data was assessed 7 days after the second dose for Pfizer and 14 days after the second dose for Moderna. And just recently, it was shown when they reanalyzed the data from the clinical trials, they found that both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were around 92% effective at preventing COVID-19 starting just 2 weeks after the first dose, which is really great news. If you want to learn more about how mRNA vaccines work, the side effects, and all of that about the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, we have the video posted on YouTube in both English and Tagalog, and you can find it on our YouTube channel. So in terms of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, this is actually a single dose vaccine. And they found that it's 72% effective at preventing moderate to severe COVID-19. And they looked specifically at whether the people in the clinical trial had a positive COVID-19 test and at least one symptom. And they started counting COVID-19 cases 28 days after the vaccine injection. They found that it's 85% effective at preventing severe COVID-19. And most importantly, it was 100% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. And so no one in the clinical trial was hospitalized or died because of COVID-19, which is really, really great and really important. So you may want to compare the different vaccines, and it may seem that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is less effective than the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, but it's important to note that these vaccines can't be directly compared to each other. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, while it may seem like the efficiency or efficacy is lower, that the Johnson & Johnson trial took place at a different time of the pandemic than the Pfizer and Moderna trials. At the time of the Johnson & Johnson trial, the number of cases was higher, and also the COVID-19 variants had begun spreading in the US and in South Africa and Brazil. What's most important to note is that all three of the vaccines are 100% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. And so the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not the weaker vaccine. I want to emphasize that all three of the vaccines are great, and you should take whatever vaccine is available once you are eligible. So how does the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine work? It's actually pretty similar to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, in that they both utilize the sequence of the spike protein. So the coronavirus pictured here uses this spike protein in red to enter our cells. The spike protein binds and allows the coronavirus to enter our cells. And so, like the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine also contains the instructions on how to make the spike protein. The instructions for the spike protein, instead of being delivered as mRNA, they're delivered to your cells using a common cold virus or an adenovirus. It's important to note that this virus is harmless. It was changed so that this virus cannot replicate inside your cells and it cannot cause illness. It's simply just a way to deliver the spike protein instructions to your cells. So this harmless virus enters our cells and gives our cells the instructions on how to make the spike protein. Our cells then make the spike protein and display it on the outside of our cells. Once the spike protein is displayed on the outside of our cells, our immune system recognizes that this spike protein is foreign and starts to build an attack against it. So our body starts building these antibodies and starts activating our white blood cells. And so the antibodies that our body starts to generate is able to bind to the spike protein. And if a real coronavirus happens to enter our body, these antibodies are able to bind to the spike protein so that and essentially it inactivates the coronavirus so that the coronavirus can no longer bind to or enter our cells. And also the white blood cells that were activated in response to the vaccine are able to kill any cells that happen to be infected. So basically, this vaccine is teaching your body how to recognize the spike protein. So in the case that the real coronavirus enters your body is already prepared to attack the virus. These antibodies will inactivate the virus and prevent it from entering your cells. And the T cells will recognize and kill any infected cells. So in summary, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is essentially delivering the instructions on how to make this spike protein into your cells using this inactivated harmless virus. The harmless virus delivers the spike protein instructions to your cell makes the spike protein and displays it on the outside. And your immune system recognizes that the spike protein is foreign and starts to build an immune response against it, building up these antibodies and activating your white blood cells. Does anybody have any questions so far on how this vaccine works? It's very similar to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine in that they're both teaching your body how to recognize the spike protein. Okay. I will also be answering questions at the end, so if more questions come up, just go ahead and put them in the comment section down below. So what are the side effects of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? The most common side effects are sore arm, and other people experience headache, tiredness, muscle aches, nausea, and fever. But most of these side effects start within 1 to 3 days of receiving the vaccine, and the side effects only last about 1 to 2 days from when you start feeling symptoms. And so are these vaccines effective against the new coronavirus variants? In terms of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we were able to see that it is effective against the South African variant. So the Johnson & Johnson had a clinical trial in South Africa. And during the clinical trial, the South African variant was already widely spread, and 96.3% of the cases that they looked at were actually caused by the South African variant. They found that their vaccine was 64% effective against moderate to severe COVID-19, and around 82% effective against severe COVID-19. And again, no one during these clinical trials who received the vaccine had died from COVID-19. So it does look like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is very effective against the South African variant. In terms of the UK variant, there is currently no clinical data about the effectiveness against that variant. For the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, we don't have any data right now on the efficacy against variants, but Moderna is testing a third dose of the existing vaccine. And they're also in the process of developing a booster shot that specifically is against the South African variant. Pfizer is also testing a third dose of the existing vaccine to see if it boosts our immune response even more. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, again, I'll be answering questions also at the end, so you can put any questions down below. Okay, so I know a lot of us are eager to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Right now, we are vaccinating healthcare workers and long-term care residents. And we've also recently moved into phase 1B. So we're vaccinating people 65 and over, education and childcare workers, emergency services workers, and food and agriculture workers. In terms of who's next, starting March 15th, which is just in a couple of days, people 16 to 64 years old with certain health conditions and disabilities will be eligible for the vaccine. There is, as you can see, there's a long list of health conditions that would qualify you. Some more prevalent ones are cancer, if it's current with debilitated or immunocompromised state. Heart conditions such as heart failure, coronary artery disease, or cardiomyopathies, but not if you have high blood pressure, severe obesity, and type 2 diabetes. And once it is March 15th. You can also go onto myturn.ca.gov to see if your specific health condition qualifies you for the vaccine. So San Francisco has opened up many vaccine sites for the general public in terms of who is eligible. It is healthcare workers 65 and older and other essential workers. The vaccines are free for those who live or work in San Francisco, and you do not need insurance to book an appointment. And recently, the city has started offering free transportation to and from your vaccine appointment. So you can ride Muni or paratransit for free. You just have to show your vaccine card or proof of your appointment. And you can also just show them an email confirmation or photo of your vaccine card. So I will be highlighting some of the vaccine sites today, but I won't be highlighting all of them. So if you want to see a comprehensive list, you can head over to sf.gov/vaccine-sites to see all the vaccine sites in San Francisco. And you can use, and this is what the site looks like. So you can see and filter out the sites that are just for the general public. But there are also a lot of additional sites for those of you who are part of the San Francisco Health Network. And you can also filter by eligibility requirements. So one of the vaccine sites that I want to highlight today is the Moscone Center South in the South of Market District. It's open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you can book an appointment at myturn.ca.gov, or you can call this number. If there's no availability, go ahead and keep checking. The time slots open 3 days in advance. But when I had checked the other day, there were a lot of appointments available still. Another site is at San Francisco State University. It is at the Mashouf Wellness Center inside MAC Gym. And this is open on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can schedule an appointment online at this link. And all of these links will be available. We have a little website that has all the links to all of these vaccine sites that I'll go over later. Another vaccine site is the City College of SF, and you can schedule an appointment online at this site, and new appointments are posted regularly. This site is actually a drive-through and walk-through site. A new site recently is the SF Market in the Bayview, and this is a walk-through site. You can schedule an appointment online through My Health Online, which is through Sutter Health, or you can call this number. Even though the scheduling is through Sutter Health, you do not need to be a Sutter Health member to make an appointment. So if you are not a Sutter Health member, but you're interested in getting a vaccine at this site, you can sign up for My Health Online, which is the Sutter Health online portal. And also, if you don't have access to a computer, or if it's a little confusing to sign up for My Health Online, you can call this number here. And the phone line is open Mondays through Fridays from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also try to book a vaccine appointment with your healthcare provider. This is the instructions for Kaiser. They're currently vaccinating healthcare workers and people 65 and older. There's still a limited supply of vaccines, so they're not yet in phase 1B. For Sutter Health, they're vaccinating healthcare workers and people 65 and older, but right now they're currently not scheduling first dose appointments, but you can check the website regularly for updates. And then if you are a UCSF patient, They are vaccinating healthcare workers, people 65 and older, and workers in phase 1B. And you can schedule an appointment online at myturn.ca.gov. And they just recently switched over to using the MyTurn site. Another thing you can do is check your local pharmacies for appointments. This one is a little bit trickier because the vaccine supply is so low. So the appointments at these different pharmacies are very limited. But there some CVS locations, Rite Aid, Safeway, and Walgreens are have the COVID-19 vaccine appointments, and you can just you would have to schedule online at these different sites. If you want to schedule an appointment at Safeway, they are at mhealthappointments.com/COVID-19 or COVID APPT, but they also are recently on myturn.ca.gov. So that is a really useful tool. Okay, so I know that was a lot. These slides will be posted online, and this video will be available for your reference. But we also recently made a new video on how to sign up for a COVID-19 vaccine using MyTurn. And so this is posted on our YouTube page. The state is trying to shift over so that all of the vaccine appointments are going to be scheduled through MyTurn. And so this will be a really helpful tutorial. So like I mentioned before, the links to the COVID-19 vaccine signups, testing sites, and more are all on our link tree. It's basically just a website that has a bunch of links, and you can scan this QR code with your phone, and it'll direct you to our link tree, or you can just type in this address into your search bar. Another video that I wanted to highlight is how to sign up for COVID-19 testing in SF. So one of our volunteers, Sean and Jamie made a video on how to find COVID-19 testing sites in San Francisco. And this is in English, but there are Tagalog subtitles. Okay, and does anyone have any questions on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, vaccine distribution, or testing sites? I think we had a couple of questions from last month's COVID-19 update that we didn't get to address. So, sorry, okay. The first question is, I heard that it's bad to take Tylenol or Advil if you have side effects to the COVID-19 vaccine because it will dampen your immune response. Is that true? Or is it okay to take these over-the-counter meds to manage symptoms? So it is okay for you to take over-the-counter pain meds to manage symptoms. You just want to wait until you actually experience the symptoms until you take the painkillers. You do not want to take Advil or Tylenol in anticipation of your vaccine. You want to wait until you experience those symptoms, and then you can take those to treat your symptoms. It will not dampen your immune response. And the second question is, did the clinical trials for Pfizer or Moderna include asymptomatic cases? So the clinical trials for Pfizer and Moderna only looked at symptomatic cases. They did not do regular COVID-19 testing on the participants in the trial. So they only knew if a participant had a case of COVID-19 if the participant experienced symptoms and then got tested. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also only looking at symptomatic cases of COVID-19. They're specifically looking at a positive COVID-19 test plus one symptom. So right now it's still unclear how these vaccines, how effective these vaccines are against asymptomatic COVID-19 cases. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, if you have any other questions that you think of later, you can go ahead and post it in the comment section down below, and we will reply and address any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carissa, for these updates you've been providing every month. They've been very informative for our community. We're going to go ahead and pass it on to Katrina and Katie and Jamie from Public Health.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina, and I'm part of the Public Health Committee. Today, we'll be talking about diabetes. So just a quick overview of our presentation. We will first be talking about diabetes and diabetes in the PhilAm community, healthy diet and lifestyle to prevent diabetes, and resources for diabetes management and support. So first off, what is diabetes? We included this video. It's a 2-minute video, but we thought it really helped explaining what diabetes is. But I'll play it and then we'll go over in more detail.
There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. They're different conditions, but they're both serious. There are some other rarer types of diabetes too. What all types of diabetes have in common is that they cause people to have too much glucose in their blood. But we all need some glucose. It's what gives us our energy. We get glucose when our bodies break down the carbohydrates that we eat or drink, and that glucose is released into our blood. We also need a hormone called insulin. It's made by our pancreas, and it's insulin that allows the glucose in our blood to enter our cells and fuel our bodies. If you don't have diabetes, your pancreas senses when glucose has entered your bloodstream and releases the right amount of insulin so the glucose can get into your cells. But if you have diabetes, this system doesn't work. When you've got type 1 diabetes, you can't make any insulin at all. If you've got type 2 diabetes, it's a bit different. The insulin you make either can't work effectively or you can't produce enough of it. In both types of diabetes, because glucose can't get into your cells, it begins to build up in your blood. And too much glucose in your blood causes a lot of different problems. To begin with, it leads to diabetes symptoms like having to wee a lot, being incredibly thirsty and feeling very tired. You may also lose weight, get infections like thrush, or suffer from slow-healing wounds. Over a long period of time, high glucose levels in your blood can seriously damage your heart, your eyes, your feet, and your kidneys. These are known as the complications of diabetes. But with the right treatment and care, people can live a healthy life. And there's much less risk that someone will experience these complications. If you've got diabetes, you can find lots of information and support about living with it using our website and helpline. As well as campaigning for everyone with diabetes to get the right care, Diabetes UK fund research into all types of diabetes.
Okay, so that was a summary of what diabetes is. But just to go over it, we'll be going over what is insulin. So insulin is a hormone produced by your body, which is important in regulating your blood sugar. If your body does not have insulin, your blood sugar or glucose levels will be uncontrolled and might be a little bit higher, and you could experience high blood sugar, which causes damage to the cells, which could eventually lead to diabetes. Additionally, diabetes ketoacidosis is uncontrolled blood sugar, which results in high levels of ketone, which results to acidosis or high blood pH, which means your blood is very acidic, and this could eventually lead to coma or death. So like the metaphor presented in the video, insulin is almost like a key that unlocks your cell doors so that glucose can get inside. Again, glucose is a simple sugar that your body gets from food so that the cells in your body can process it, so it'll turn into energy so you can function throughout the day. But the 3 types of diabetes is when your body can't process glucose correctly, because in type 1 diabetes, it's a condition in which patients produce little to no insulin. So it's almost as if there's no key to open the cells for glucose to enter and transition into energy. Type 2 diabetes is a condition in which your body is resistant to insulin and eventually stops producing insulin. So basically, it's like the insulins are broken keys that can't open the cell doors so that glucose can come inside. Additionally, gestational diabetes is a form of high blood sugar in pregnant women. So now we'll be going over one of the main tests for diabetes. This is called the glycated hemoglobin A1C test. It's a test to show your average blood sugar for the past 2 to 3 months. So this test is super convenient because it actually does not require fasting like a lot of other diabetes tests. And so if your A1C level or the average blood sugar level in your blood is 6.5% or over, it indicates diabetes. Additionally, A1C between 5.7 and 6.4 indicates prediabetes, which means you are at risk for developing diabetes. And A1C levels below 5.6 is considered normal. We just also wanted to include this chart, which shows the A1C levels for normal, prediabetes, and diabetes. So some diabetes symptoms include always being hungry, unexpected weight loss, numb or tingling hands or feet, frequent urination, extreme fatigue, or having wounds that heal slowly. Other symptoms not included in this graphic include blurry vision, frequent urination or having to pee a lot, especially at night. You're often very thirsty, you lose weight without trying, and yeah, that you're always hungry.
Okay, so now we will be going over diabetes in our community. So in America, over 34.3 million Americans have diabetes and 88 million American adults have prediabetes. And among Asian Americans, Filipino Americans are the second leading group with diabetes, with the first being Asian Indian Americans. And now I will be going over who is at risk for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And this population includes those who are over 45 years old and older, people who are overweight, people who have a parent or sibling with type 2 diabetes, people who are less active, less than 3 times per week, and people who have had gestational diabetes. Now moving on to diabetes care, it's important to meet with your healthcare team or diabetes educator in order to develop a healthy eating and exercise regimen, learn to recognize the signs of high or low blood sugar and actions to take, learn to manage stress and how to deal with daily diabetes care, and get your diabetes supplies and learn how to use and store them properly. You can also ask your PCP about diabetes self-management education and support services. And I just want to say that though we are in a pandemic and a lot of folks are in quarantine, it's still really important to reach out to your PCP by phone or even virtually if you need any help managing your diabetes.
Oh, we just have a quick question for everyone who wants to answer in the comments. This quick question is, what is type 2 diabetes? just leave your answers in the chat. Then the answer is C. Your body is resistant to insulin and eventually stops producing insulin.
And so now we'll move on to diabetes prevention. So in order to prevent type 2 diabetes, the biggest recommendations are a healthy diet and exercise. And a healthy diet consists of eating more non-starchy vegetables like peppers, mushrooms, asparagus, broccoli, and spinach, eating more fruits and lean proteins like fish, chicken, turkey, tofu, eggs, and yogurt, more whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, and steel-cut oatmeal, and lastly, water. And you should also refrain from eating a lot of processed foods like chips, granola bars, sweets, fast foods, and packaged snacks and meat, trans fat found in margarine, fried foods, and packaged foods and chips, and lastly, sugary drinks and alcohol. And stay tuned for our next month's health education topic, which is healthy, nutritious eating in the Filipinx community.
Hello, my name is Jamie, and I'm one of the public health chairs, along with Katrina and Katie at Mabuhay Health Center. So another recommendation to prevent developing type 2 diabetes is to exercise at least 115 minutes weekly or 30 minutes 5 days per week. In January, we actually had our health education topic about how to safely exercise during the pandemic. And on here are lists of links of great resources of workout websites you can use to exercise safely indoors and outdoors in the setting of the pandemic. This is the link to the YouTube video, and if you'd like to search it up, it's called Safe Exercise During the COVID-19 Pandemic. And most importantly, please get support from your friends and family. Making lifestyle changes is going to be hard, especially during this pandemic. Asking your family to exercise with you and invite them to cook or eat healthy meals with you will not only be healthy for you and them, but I'm sure it'll also be a bonding experience. You can also join community groups right now where you can help encourage each other and find tips about how to better manage your lifestyle changes for prevention or to help manage with your diabetes. And to your right is just an example of some of our MHC members cooking vegan Filipino spaghetti virtually, which just goes to show that there's still a community out there, even virtually, and in which you can get support and encouragement from. In terms of resources, we have a link right here and a QR code which you can scan with your phone, which has all the resources we will be talking about in the next few slides. The link can redirect you to specialty care providers such as endocrinologists for your diabetes at Zuckerberg SF General. There's also a community wellness center there that has free wellness programs for food and exercise regimens. And at UCSF, there's a diabetes online education, which can help you with diabetes education. We also have a list of resources for recipes that helps bring healthy eating and the Filipino cuisine. As we all may know, that may not be always the case. I know Astig Vegan has a vegan and healthier version of longanisa, pinakbit, and even adobo, which I am looking forward to cooking and trying later. And I am encouraging you to do so as well. And in order to know if you even have diabetes in the first place, it'd be good to ask your doctor or PCP to get screening done so they can order blood work for you, or you can get screened at San Francisco Free Clinic or even Zuckerberg SF General. Or you can actually also just buy an at-home diabetes screening kit that you can purchase at Walgreens. And these will all look at your A1C, which, as Katrina has explained previously, tells you your average blood sugar levels for the last 2 to 3 months. And then to help you with your diabetes management and or prevention in our community at Mabuhay Health Center, during our Saturday clinic, our patient care team can actually talk to you and give advice on your diabetes management, or maybe even for prevention as well. And then SOMCAN has also a physical wellness class every Friday at 5 p.m. on Facebook Live, linked right here. And you just have to make sure that you are added to the hashtag SOMCAN group in order to be able to access their videos. And lastly, there's also the SFBEC food pantry where you can get access to food and groceries if needed. I think this would be a good place to get those ingredients to cook vegan spaghetti or pinakbet or adobo. And we have one last question, which is, which of the following are symptoms of diabetes? A, is it blurry vision? B, numb or tingling of hands and or feet? C, thirst? D, all of the above plus more symptoms? And if you answered D, that is correct. It is all of the above and other symptoms. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them below. We will try to answer them as best as we could. And also, just to reiterate, we also have a Tagalog version of this video in our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Public Health, for that presentation. It's now Behavioral Health's turn, so go ahead.
Thank you so much, Public Health, for that amazing presentation about diabetes. So now we'll move on to the next presentation by Behavioral Health. My name is Gabriel Samayan Garcia.
My name is Grishelle Hippolito.
And our topic today is intergenerational and intercultural connections.
Okay, so for today's talk, we want to discuss the familial relationship and the special relationship that we carry with our family members, especially surrounding grandparents and their apo or their grandchildren. So to start the conversation, we will first share a short story between a Lola and her apo, and then we'll talk about their relationship a little bit more and possible reasons for the conflict due to intergenerational and intercultural differences. And then lastly, we'll talk about some tips and techniques on how we can strengthen these relationships.
So yeah, before we kind of just start off the whole presentation today, we will tell you a moment in time, a story between Lola Marissa and her apo JR. And so for this part of the topic, we will be turning off our cameras and we'll be kind of acting out like, you know, I'll be Lola Marissa, Grishelle will be apo JR, and just to get the full effect of the story. So to just give a narrative, the story begins at home during an ordinary Friday night where Lola Marissa calls her apo JR to eat because dinner is ready. Their conflict starts because JR says that they won't be eating dinner since they are going out. So, apo, it's time to eat. Kakain na.
Oh, Lola, I'm actually going out to eat with my friends tonight, so I'm not going to eat dinner here at home.
Why didn't you say earlier? I already cooked dinner.
Because Lola, my friends asked me to go out just now, and it's Friday night. I just want to go out and have fun.
All you think about is fun and your friends. You never want to spend time with the family and me.
Lola, it's so boring here. All I do is chores, and I already did my homework and got your medication.
Why did you just go live with your friends then? Maybe they'll get sick of you too. So yeah, that is the story between Lola Marissa and her apo JR. And so as you know, we're thinking more about the story between Lola Marissa and her apo and this kind of slice of life moment. Me and Grishelle will kind of want to discuss shortly some questions to further think about this story and how this relates to our daily lives with our family. So first question is, why do you think there was a conflict? Do you think anyone was wrong in this process or story? And can you relate to this scenario at any time? So I just posed a question. Why do you think there was a conflict, Rochelle?
Yeah, I think there was a conflict, maybe because they both have different expectations and they aren't sure of how to best communicate with each other on those differences in a way that they can both understand each other. What about you, Gabe? What do you think?
Yeah. Before I say my thing, as we go through this discussion questions, also feel free to answer the questions or share any of your thoughts in the chat. But to answer just the question, I feel like the conflict maybe started between Lola and Harper JR because they have some thoughts and emotions that they need to address together, because obviously it is clear that there are some build-up emotions there that they need to kind of just talk about.
Yeah. And going off of that, Gabe, do you think in this scenario that anyone was wrong?
I don't necessarily think anyone was wrong in this scenario, although I have a small bias towards the way JR speaks back to her, to their Lola Marissa. I think they have kind of a misunderstanding and are interpreting their emotions with possibly hurtful words, such as, you know, when JR was like, all I do is work and clean in the house and it's so boring here. And so like, and then on the other hand, Lola Marissa telling Apo JR that she is sick of them. Like they kind of aren't meeting each other in the middle and instead are projecting like negative emotions that have led to a misunderstanding such as this one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think either of them are wrong, but more of like there are better ways to express how they feel and what they think to each other in a way that's not hurtful or disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. And so can you relate to this scenario at all, Rochelle?
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is a really relatable scenario. I can relate to how JR must have been feeling because I myself, I was born here in the States and both my grandparents actually came to live with me and my family from the Philippines. And especially when I was a teenager, there were some moments where I just felt that my grandparents didn't understand like why I wanted to do certain things or why I acted a certain way. And I would just say that they're just being too strict or too old school when they made comments about, for example, my clothes or the music that I listened to, the activities I did, the people I spent time with outside of the family. But I also admit that when I was younger, I wasn't as understanding of, you know, what my Lola and Lolo must have also thought and felt, because I realized that they just grew up in very different circumstances and different norms and expectations. So they're just trying to, you know, teach me and raise me in the way that they knew how. And if I was in this scenario, I also think my Lola would feel hurt and disrespected as well, because she definitely would feel probably like she didn't raise me or my siblings to talk back or raise our voice at our elders. And she might have been shocked that I was becoming too or so Americanized that I just forgot about respect and like my family and my roots. What about you, Gabe?
Yeah, you know, I can relate to this as well. Back when, you know, when my Lola, I call her Nanay, used to live with us, we would have similar fights like this. And like looking back, I wish I was a little bit less mean to my grandma, you know, because we're both like, we both immigrated here from the Philippines at the same time. And so we're both adjusting to the, you know, quote unquote American life after moving from Philippines. And because we kind of responded to each other the same way that Lola Marissa and JR responded to each other. And so we had times where we kind of felt disconnected and angry with each other. And adding on to that, my parents work like until 9 p.m. And so like my nanay took care of me and my siblings. And so just to look into like my grandma's, my nanay's perspective and all of this, like I definitely feel like I took that for granted and like took for granted, you know, all the things that she did for me, like cook for me every night, and like, you know, just take care of me and my brothers, while like that's kind of a lot for like, you know, just one person being at home and taking care of all of us. But yeah, So we're having a little technical difficulties with the slides.
No, it's okay. No, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure that a lot of us can also relate in one way or another to this scenario, or have had even similar interactions with either our parents, our grandparents, any of our like caretakers and such. So thank you for sharing. We'll go ahead and move into, now that we've shared some of our thoughts and y'all have kind of shared your thoughts in the chat as well in this scenario, we want to talk about a few generational and cultural differences that may have affected why their perspectives were different in the first place, and maybe this would help to identify possible reasons for their misunderstanding. So again, we encourage everyone to just think about how the differences between, you know, Filipino culture and American culture also play a role in this. So to start, the first generational and cultural difference that we want to talk about is the difference in respect for elders. So like many other Asian cultures, respect for elders is a traditional value in Filipino culture, especially within the family. And in Lola Marissa and JR's conversation, JR was more vocal or assertive about how he feels and what he wants to do. And Lola may have taken that as talking back or being disrespectful.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think something that's related to respect for elders is also the prioritization of family time. And so in Filipino culture, as you all know, family values are very important, and expectations to, you know, make family time, togetherness is a priority, like such as the family eats together, we all pray together, we go to church together, and like everyone kind of has a role in maintaining the family harmony in the household. And so as a way to raise the children to grow up with a foundation of respect, you know, and like in a collectivist culture such as us, it's also expected to be hospitable, to not be selfish, and to take care of the elders and even extended family or neighbors. So while versus in American culture, it is more common for teenagers to have a desire to spend time with their friends or peers as part of their social development. And so this may have contributed to why Lola Marissa and JR did not see eye to eye, because, you know, JR wants to go out with friends, and this is kind of misunderstood as like, you're not spending time with the family, you're not spending time with me kind of thing. And so like, rather than having dinner with, you know, Lola Marissa.
Yeah. And lastly, the third difference is difference in communication styles. So the way Lola Marissa and JR communicated with each other may have been a reason in itself. So again, similar to the respect for elders value, it's expected in Filipino culture as well to speak to those who are older in a polite way. And as we'll talk a little bit more later, it's important to also consider the family, consider what's best for the whole family, rather than speaking in a way that may come off as being selfish or only thinking for yourself, instead of maintaining the family harmony. So the way, again, that JR was firm about wanting to go out was different from the Filipino cultural expectation of, you know, politely listening to his Lola and not talking back.
And so now, how do we strengthen these relationships? And so me and Grishel are basically gonna give like little like recommendation strategies, tips, you know, for like family level strategies, for parent level strategies, and individual level strategies. And so first is family level strategies. So these are strategies that everyone in the family should strive to do and create together and try to, you know, put in practice within the family. And so the first thing is open communication. And this essentially means, you know, while we're talking about like we have different ways of communicating each other, this means creating a family environment that allows for sharing of daily activities, events, thoughts, opinions, and that everyone feels comfortable in openly discussing issues with each other, whether it be opinions about the world or simply as like house chores, you know? And I'd also like to note that for some cultures such as Filipino, we talked about this earlier, but open communication is viewed in a collectivist way, meaning talking about things in light of what is best for the whole family. And so keeping into mind how we express emotions and feelings differently is important. And while in Western culture, it is more individualistic. And so finding a cultural bridge between these differences. And so like talking to one another, and like just kind of understanding each other's like boundaries, and also like how each person communicates and like giving each other the time and space to be more comfortable in discussing upon these things. And also creating an environment that isn't like judgmental or there's no bias, and being more open to either individualistic or collective approach, because, you know, we are Filipino Americans. And so it's kind of like we're blending in with, or we're trying to blend in and assimilate to this culture that like wasn't originally ours or something. But yeah, creating like kind of the new like Filipino American like ideal like life.
And the second family level strategy is maintaining family relationships. So finding ways to create a healthy balance between spending time with family and then other people such as peers or friends, and also just behavior that will still convey respect and support and the desire to still be emotionally close to the family. And so, for example, showing your apo or your lola, your lolo, your parents, whomever, how much you appreciate them, either by, you know, verbally saying it and telling it to them, or even just a gesture of asking them to do something with you. Like simple things like this can be a bridge of communication. So tying it back into Lola Marissa and JR's scenario, JR could have said that, you know, he'll be going out with his friends tonight, but, you know, reassure his Lola that maybe tomorrow or sometime the next week, he'll dedicate time with the family to cook dinner, or he can invite Lola to go on a walk with him the next day to show that he still wants to maintain that familial relationship.
Yeah. And so now we're just going to talk about parent level strategies, and it's kind of like all the things we talked about kind of goes into this as well. But just a little note before I talk about parent level strategies, I feel like in Filipino life, you know, we are very family oriented, and the phrase "it takes a community to raise a child" resonates with how I describe Filipino families. And so when I really say parent, I really mean someone who takes care of you. So it can be your lola, for me I call my nanay, or even your big sister. So these are people that like take care of you on a daily basis and like who loves you and everything, you know. And so the first tip or strategy is providing unconditional love and support. We all know this, but just a reaffirmation and reinforcement of this idea is just like, it means like healthy encouragement and support, and also criticism and feedback, so that your apo or your child feels motivated, you know, to kind of like reach their potential. And like, remember that love and passion starts with, you know, love and passion of self. And so being that person that motivates and teaches your child or your po the meaning of learning of love, can, you know, enable them to become the best person that they can be. And it all just starts at home. And, you know, we all have different ways of loving each other. And for example, Lola Marissa way of like showing love and support was cooking and spending time with JR. And so, you know, let your apo or anak show how you show love. Let them know how much you love them.
And then the next parent level strategy is learning to adjust to your children and practicing it. So just negotiating and adjusting so that the relationship doesn't seem so one-sided and is more of an equal playing field, because we want to get rid of the notion or the idea that I'm older than you, which means I know more and you just have to listen to me. That's the way it goes, because automatically that disregards, you know, your child's or your apo's thoughts and experiences and feelings. So just taking time to listen to them again, and just don't automatically interpret them trying to explain themselves as being disrespectful. So being more open to having that conversation and listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going on with being more open with that conversation, recognizing that, you know, we're all adjusting to American culture as a family. And so acknowledge together that the whole family is adjusting. And so supporting each other and adjusting to changes as a family can create a healthy environment. We all bond and struggle together, even if our experiences with these changes are intergenerationally different from each other. And so, for example, like, you know, Lola Marissa's experience with American culture is different from JR. And so, you know, finding a bridge where they can talk about these things, because, you know, like, even though it's all different, like there are similarities in there, and that this is a way to get closer to your family.
Okay, so now we want to talk about the kids' perspective, meaning us. So how do we adjust and create a healthy bridge of communication between us and our grandparents or our parents? Since, again, as Gabe just talked about, adjusting to American life is a family, something you go through as a family. So how do we, as well as Filipino Americans with our families, adjust together, regardless of these intercultural and intergenerational differences? Do you have any thoughts, Gabe?
I think, okay, yeah. I love this section because, we get to talk about ourselves and and I think one of the biggest things for me is although I'm thankful that this past few months I've gotten closer to my family, but I think one of the biggest things I still need to learn how to do, or how to navigate through, is addressing my capacity and boundaries, and letting know how I feel, especially I'm a college student. I'm not at home as I used to be. I'm learning new things. I feel like I don't want them to misinterpret that as just me being away and not prioritizing the family. I obviously think about them all the time and I love them very much. And so finding a way to, relay that love that I still have for them, and to let them know that I think about them every day, is something that I want to work on. And it doesn't have to be even words, it can be physical things. One time I surprised my mom that I came home oh, hi mom, surprise her. And so being more comfortable with that and addressing my boundaries and addressing how much I love them. And yeah. How about you, Grishel?
No, yeah, I agree. I think for me, I can also work on the little things, because at least for my family, they really appreciate even just when I give them a call and let them know what I'm doing, or just what I'm up to. And because I know that helps to, again, foster open communication, and it shows that I want to keep them involved in what I do, even outside of the family dynamic. So just, I think those little ways of assuring my family that I still, uphold those familial and cultural values, for sure.
Yeah. Yay, thank you for sharing. But maraming salamat po. That is kind of our presentation or topic today. Thank you all for chiming in this long 1 hour presentation with everyone. Thank you, Public Health. Thank you, Carissa, for the public COVID-19 updates. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Salamat.
Thank you so much, Behavioral Health Committee, for bringing all those, for your reflection, for bringing this topic to light here during our webinar. Thank you also to Public Health for all your amazing presentations. Just wanted to give a little reminder that Mabuhay Health Center is now on YouTube. So you can go ahead and look up Mabuhay Health Center on YouTube and find all our videos broken up and in both English and Tagalog. So go ahead and subscribe to MHC. And then we have our feedback survey. So if you would please take the time to fill it out. We really take your feedback into account for our topics and just for the development of our health education program. And then, as always, we wanted to give a special thanks to SOMCAN for your partnership and collaboration. We appreciate the feedback you've given us and the support you've given us to make today happen. So yeah, that wraps up this month's webinar. Thank you to everyone who made today's stream happen. Also, thank you viewers for watching. It's been a year since MHC Clinic Saturdays have taken place in person. And while we miss the clinic space very much, we appreciate the time you've taken to connect with us through our virtual platforms. That said, I hope you all continue to take care and hope you can join us next month on April 10th at 10 o'clock a.m. Bye everyone, have a great weekend.